Looking at the effects panel in Lightroom, we have a couple tools we can use. We have post-crop vignetting and grain. Taking a look first at the post-crop vignetting, there are a few different styles that you can choose. We have color priority, paint overlay, and highlight priority. Highlight priority is going to allow bright colors to overpower the vignette and allow some of those highlights to come through, whereas color priority is going to do the same for color. Whereas paint overlay is going to affect all the pixels equally in the corners, whether you're darkening them or lightening them up. By default, it's on highlight priority, and you have an amount slider. To the left will darken your corners, to the right will brighten them to create a dark or bright vignette. Anytime you slide the slider to the left, your highlight slider down here will become visible and you'll be able to recover some of those highlights in your corner. If you look down here at the bottom right edge, you can see we can allow those highlights to bleed through to the point that we would like. Under our amount slider, we have our midpoint, which will choose how far in our vignette reaches. Our roundness, is it going to be a more round or square vignette? And our feather. Do we want a real harsh vignette or something nice and feathered out? That's pretty much it for post-crop vignetting. It's not a tool I use very much anymore. I prefer to create my own vignettes with the masking tools, which is something we'll dive into in part 2 of my Lightroom series, which should be coming out in a couple weeks. So under that, we have our grain tab. Let's go ahead and zoom in here on the image. And you can see it's a very clean image. It was shot at ISO 100. And sometimes that clean digital look is not something that everybody wants. People long for the days of film. Film often had some grain associated with it. And that's where we can bring back some of this effect. Here we have an amount slider to bring in as little or as much grain as we want. I usually am pretty light with it, around 20, 25. We have a size slider, which is just how big or small we want the grain. I like my grain to be very fine, around 1 or 2, and a roughness. So I'll bring the size up some so we can see that. How rough of a grain do we want in our image? For me, I like a very fine grain, very small, and very smooth. So I have this at 24, 4, and 3 to bring some grain into this image. This can also be used to do a little sharpening, and it can bring in more noise than you like, so I recommend zooming in on the image and really taking a close look at what you're doing. But I do really like the effect that it had here. So that is it for the effects panel.